The summer heat bore down on the Arizona territory like a living thing, shimmering off the red rocks and turning the desert air into a furnace that tested the endurance of every living creature. Marcus Whitmore had ridden out before dawn to check the water levels at Willow Creek, the lifeblood of his struggling ranch that had sustained his cattle through 3 years of drought. What he found at the muddy banks of the nearly dry creek made him question his sanity at first, then filled him with a horror and compassion that would change his life forever. Partially buried in the sticky brown mud of the creek bed, barely breathing and covered in dirt from head to toe, lay a small Apache girl who couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old. Her dark hair was matted with clay, her traditional Apache clothing torn and filthy, and her small body was so still that Marcus initially thought she was dead. "Dear God," Marcus whispered, dismounting quickly and splashing through the shallow water to reach her dot as he knelt beside the child. Marcus could see that she was alive, but barely conscious, her breathing shallow and labored. Someone had left her here to die, that much was obvious from the way she'd been partially buried, as if whoever abandoned her wanted to ensure the elements would finish what they'd started. "Hey there, little one," Marcus said softly, gently, brushing mud from her face. "Can you hear me?" The girl's eyes fluttered open, dark, intelligent eyes that held far too much pain and weariness for someone so young. When she saw Marcus's face hovering over her, she tried to scramble away, but her weakened state made movement impossible. "No hurt," she whispered in broken English, her voice hoarse and desperate. "Please, no hurt." Marcus's heart clenched at the terror in her voice. "I'm not going to hurt you, sweetheart. I'm going to help you. My name is Marcus. What's your name?" The girl stared at him with suspicious eyes, clearly debating whether to trust this white stranger who had found her in her most vulnerable state. Finally, she whispered, "Ayanna." "Ayanna," Marcus repeated gently. "That's a beautiful name. Ayanna, I need to get you cleaned up and somewhere safe. Will you let me help you?" For a long moment, Ayanna studied his face with an intensity that was startling in someone so young. Marcus had the feeling she was reading his soul, looking for signs of the cruelty she'd obviously experienced. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she gave the smallest nod. Lifting Ayanna from the mud was like picking up a broken bird. She weighed almost nothing, and Marcus could feel every bone in her tiny frame. As he carried her to his horse, he noticed old bruises on her arms and what looked like burn marks on her hands. Someone had been systematically abusing this child before abandoning her to die. "Who did this to you?" Marcus asked quietly as he settled Ayanna in front of him on his horse. "Bad men," Ayanna replied, then seemed to catch herself and fell silent. Marcus didn't press for more details. The important thing now was getting her medical attention and somewhere safe. His ranch was only 3 miles away, but he could feel how weak she was becoming as they rode. Every few minutes, he had to adjust his grip to keep her from sliding off the horse. "Stay with me." "Ayanna," he murmured, "we're almost home." By the time they reached the ranch house, Ayanna had lost consciousness entirely. Marcus's housekeeper, Eleanor Ramirez, took one look at the mud-covered child in his arms and immediately went into action. "Dios mío," Eleanor breathed, crossing herself. "What happened to this poor baby?" "I found her buried in the mud at Willow Creek," Marcus explained as Eleanor led him toward the kitchen. "Someone left her there to die." Eleanor's face darkened with anger, but her touch was infinitely gentle as she helped Marcus lay Ayanna on the kitchen table. "She's burning with fever. We need to get her cleaned up and cooled down immediately." The next hour was spent carefully washing away layers of mud and grime, revealing the full extent of Ayanna's injuries. Besides the fever and dehydration, she had infected cuts on her legs, burns on her palms that looked like they'd been made with hot coals, and bruises in various stages of healing. That painted a picture of prolonged abuse. Who could do this to a child? Eleanor asked, tears streaming down her face as she gently cleaned Ayanna's wounds. "I don't know," Marcus replied grimly, "but when I find out, they'll answer for it." Dr. Samuel Wells, the territorial doctor who served the scattered ranches and settlements in the area, arrived just as the sun was setting. He was a kind man in his 60s who had seen too much suffering in his years on the frontier. But even He was visibly shaken by Ayana's condition. "This child has been systematically tortured," Dr. Wells said after completing his examination. "The burns on her hands are deliberate, probably made with branding irons or hot stones. The cuts on her legs are too precise to be accidental, and the pattern of bruising suggests repeated beatings over an extended period." "Will she survive?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with emotion. "With proper care and nursing, yes. But Marcus, you need to understand what you're taking on. This child has experienced trauma that would break most adults, even if her body heals. Her mind and spirit may take years to recover if they ever do. Then will take years." Marcus said simply, "Whatever she needs, for as long as she needs it." Dr. Wells studied Marcus's face with surprise. "You're planning to keep her." "I'm planning to care for her," Marcus corrected. "Beyond that, we'll see what she wants when she's old enough to decide for herself." For the next 3 days, Ayana drifted in and out of consciousness, fighting a fever that threatened to take her life despite all their efforts. Marcus and Elena took turns sitting by her bedside, cooling her burning skin with damp cloths and trying to get small sips of water down her throat. It was during one of his night watches that Ayana finally spoke again. Marcus had been reading aloud from a book of fairy tales, something Elena had suggested might be comforting when he noticed the child's eyes were open and focused on his face. "You still here?" Ayana said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm still here," Marcus confirmed. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" "Hurt," she admitted, "but not scared now." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "You don't ever have to be scared here, Ayana. This is a safe place." Safe? The concept seemed foreign to her, as if she'd never encountered it before. "Safe," Marcus confirmed. "No one will hurt you here. No one will leave you. This is your home now, for as long as you want it to be." Ayana was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why what?" "Why you help Apache?" "Girl, white men. White men don't help Apache." The question cut to the heart of something Marcus had been struggling with himself. "Because you're not Apache girl to me, Ayana. You're just a little girl who needed help. And any decent person helps children in trouble, regardless of what they look like or where they come from." "Decent," Ayana repeated, testing the unfamiliar word. "It means good, kind, honorable. You decent man." "I try to be," Marcus said honestly. "I don't always succeed, but I try." Over the following weeks, as Ayana's physical injuries began to heal, Marcus started to see glimpses of the remarkable child beneath the trauma. She was incredibly intelligent, picking up English phrases with startling speed. She was observant, noticing details about ranch life that most adults would miss. And despite everything she'd endured, she had moments of natural curiosity and even rare smiles that lit up her entire face. But the healing process wasn't linear. Loud noises would send her into hiding. The sight of fire made her shake uncontrollably, and she flinched away from any sudden movements, even from Marcus and Elena, whom she'd begun to trust. "She's having nightmares again," Elena reported one morning after Ayana had spent the night crying out in her sleep. "She keeps saying no burn over and over." Marcus felt his anger toward Ayana's unknown tormentors burning even hotter. "We just have to be patient. Dr. Wells said it would take time." "Marcus," Elena said carefully, "have you thought about what you'll do if her people come looking for her?" It was a question that had been haunting Marcus since the day he'd found Ayana. "If her family comes looking for her, her real family who loves her, then we'll figure that out together. But if the people who hurt her come back..." He didn't finish the sentence, but Elena understood. Marcus Whitmore was not a violent man by nature, but he would kill to protect the child who had somehow wound up in his care. The first real breakthrough came about a month after Ayana's arrival, when Marcus found her in the barn, gently stroking the nose of his old mare, Bella. "She likes you," Marcus observed, approaching slowly so as not to startle either the child or the horse. "She said." Ayana said simply, "Like me." Marcus looked at Bella with new eyes and realized Ayana was right. The mare had been listless lately, moving with the resigned gait of an animal that had lost its purpose. "How can you tell she's sad?" Marcus asked. "Eyes," Ayana said. touching the area around her own eyes. Eyes always tell truth. And what do my eyes tell you? Marcus asked curiously. Ayanna turned to study his face with that intense concentration. She brought to everything. Your eyes say, you lonely too, but getting less lonely now. The insight from this traumatized 6-year-old was so accurate it took Marcus's breath away. You're very wise, Ayanna. Grandmothers say Apache children learn to see with heart, not just eyes. It was the first time Ayanna had mentioned any family, and Marcus felt a mixture of hope and dread. Tell me about your grandmother. Ayanna's face grew sad. Grandmother gone. Grandfather gone. All gone now. What happened to them? Bad men came to village, killed everyone, took me. Ayanna's voice was matter of fact, but Marcus could see the pain behind her composure. Said I bring good price, but I fight too much, get to hurt, so they leave me in mud to die. Marcus felt sick as the full picture of Ayanna's ordeal became clear. She hadn't just been abused, she'd been kidnapped from her murdered family and sold into slavery. When she'd proven too difficult to handle, her captors had simply disposed of her like unwanted trash. Ayanna, Marcus said gently, kneeling down to her level, I am so sorry that happened to you. But I promise you, no one will ever hurt you like that again. Not while I'm alive to prevent it. You promise? I promise. And Ayanna, your grandmother was right about Apache children being wise. You see things that adults miss. That's a gift. For the first time since he'd found her, Ayanna smiled a real, genuine smile that transformed her serious little face. You think I gift? I think you're the greatest gift that's ever come into my life, Marcus said honestly. That night, for the first time since her arrival, Ayanna slept through the night without nightmares, and Marcus began to understand that healing this broken child might just be healing something broken in himself as well. Subscribe to our channel to see how Marcus and Ayanna build their unlikely family. Hit that notification bell for more heartwarming stories of love conquering all. Winter came early to the Arizona territory that year, bringing with it a strange blessing that Marcus hadn't expected. The shorter days and cooler weather seemed to agree with Ayanna, who had always been sensitive to the intense heat that characterized most of the year in the desert. As the months passed, Marcus watched her slowly transform from a frightened, broken child into something approaching a normal little girl. Her English had improved remarkably, though she still mixed in Apache words when she was excited or upset. Elena had become like a grandmother to her, teaching her to cook simple meals and helping her with the feminine skills that Marcus, as a bachelor, was ill-equipped to provide. But it was her relationship with Marcus that had become the cornerstone of her healing. Papa Marcus. Ayanna said one morning she had started calling him that about a month earlier. Much to his delight. Can you teach me to ride, Bella? Marcus looked up from his coffee, surprised by the request. Ayanna had shown interest in the horses, but had never asked to ride. Are you sure you're ready for that, sweetheart? Bella and me, we understand each other. She won't hurt me. Marcus had noticed the special bond that had developed between Ayanna and the old mare. Bella, who had been sluggish and unresponsive for months, had perked up considerably since Ayanna's arrival. The child had a gift with animals that bordered on supernatural. They sensed her gentle spirit and responded to her accordingly. All right, Marcus agreed. But we start very slowly, and you do exactly what I tell you. The riding lessons became a daily ritual that both Marcus and Ayanna looked forward to. She was a natural horsewoman, with the instinctive balance and fearlessness that seemed to be characteristic of Apache children. But more than that, the lessons gave them time to talk and bond away from the house and Elena's watchful, but sometimes overwhelming mothering. Papa Marcus, Ayanna said one afternoon as they walked Bella round the corral. Why you never have wife, children? The question caught Marcus off guard. Well, there was a woman I cared about once, but she didn't want to live on a ranch so far from town. She married a banker in Tucson instead. That make you sad for a while. But now I think maybe it was for the best. She wouldn't have understood about you, what you mean. Marcus helped Ayanna dismount from Bella and led the horse toward the water trough. I mean that some people think Apache children should only live with Apache families. They wouldn't understand why a white man would want to raise an Apache daughter. Ayana was quiet for a moment, absorbing this information. You want to be my papa for real, not just until Apache family comes? The question that Marcus had been dreading had finally come. Ayana, if your real family, your blood family, is still alive and looking for you, then we'll have to figure out what's best for you. But if they're not, then yes, I would very much like to be your papa for real. Blood family all dead. Ayana said matter-of-factly. Bad men killed everyone. You only family now. Then yes, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. I want to be your papa forever, if you'll have me. Ayana threw her small arms around his waist and buried her face against his shirt. I love you, Papa Marcus. I love you too, little one. More than you'll ever know. Their peaceful existence was shattered one morning in late February when 3 Apache warriors appeared at the ranch house just after dawn. Marcus heard the dogs barking and looked out to see the men sitting there. Horses about 50 yards from the house, clearly waiting to be acknowledged. Elena, Marcus called quietly. Take Ayana upstairs and keep her there until I say otherwise. What's wrong? Ayana asked, having heard the urgency in his voice. Just some visitors I need to talk to first, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice calm. Go with Elena, sweetheart. Marcus walked out onto the porch slowly, his hands visible but ready to reach for the rifle he kept beside the door. The lead warrior was an older man with graying hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. The other two were younger, probably in their 20s, and both had the hard look of men who had seen too much war. I am Joseph Running Wolf, the older man said in careful English. We seek Apache child. Girl taken from our people many moons ago. Marcus's heart sank, but he kept his expression neutral. What makes you think there's an Apache child here, traitor? In Tucson, say white rancher found Apache girl by river. Say she live here now. There's a child living here, Marcus admitted, but she's my daughter now. I found her dying in the mud, abandoned by whoever had taken her from her people. Joseph's eyes hardened. Apache child belong with Apache people. You give her back. That's not my decision to make. Marcus said firmly, it's hers. Child too young to decide. We take her now. One of the younger warriors moved his hand toward his weapon, but Joseph stopped him with a sharp word in Apache. Marcus didn't understand the language, but the tone was clear. Wait, I'm not going to prevent her from seeing you, Marcus said, carefully, but I'm also not going to let anyone take her against her will. She's been through enough trauma for one lifetime. Joseph studied Marcus's face for a long moment. You care for this child. I love her like my own daughter. Show us. Marcus called toward the house. Ayana, it's all right. You can come out now. Ayana appeared in the doorway, staying close to Elena, but looking curiously at the Apache warriors. When she saw them, her eyes widened with recognition not of the specific men, but of her own people. Joseph spoke to her in rapid Apache, and Ayana responded hesitantly. The conversation continued for several minutes, with Marcus understanding none of it but watching Ayana's body language carefully. She seemed wary, but not frightened, which he took as a good sign. Finally, Joseph turned back to Marcus. She tells interesting story. Says white man found her when she was dying. Says white man feeds her, cares for her wounds, gives her safe place to heal. That's the truth. She also says she chooses to stay with white man. Says she has no other family left. Marcus held his breath, waiting for Joseph's response to this. News. Child speaks truth about family, Joseph said sadly. Her village was destroyed by slave traders 6 moons ago. We have been searching for survivors ever since. He looked at Ayana with obvious affection. She is daughter of my cousin, last of her line. Then you have every right to take her with you, Marcus said, though the words felt like they were tearing his heart out. Do we? Joseph asked. Child has been treated well here, has learned white man's language, white man's ways. She is fed, clothed, protected. She says she loves the man who saved her life. Marcus was confused. What are you saying? I am saying that perhaps Apache child needs to choose between 2 worlds. Apache way is to honor child's wishes when she is old enough to understand consequences. And you think she's old enough? Joseph looked at Ayana again, seeing the healthy, confident child she had become under Marcus's care. Child has lived through things that would break many adults. She has earned right to choose her path. What followed was a conversation that would stay with Marcus for the rest of his life. Joseph explained that Ayana's village had been one of several targeted by slave traders who specialized in capturing Apache children for sale to buyers in Mexico and California. The survivors of the attacks had scattered, with most joining other Apache bands in the mountains. We could take her with us, Joseph said. She would be raised in Apache ways, learn Apache traditions, marry Apache warrior when she is old enough, and if she stays here, then she becomes white man's daughter, learns white man's ways, maybe forgets Apache blood that flows in her veins. Ayana had been listening to this exchange with growing understanding. Finally, she spoke up. Uncle Joseph, she said in careful English, I remember Apache ways. Grandmother taught me before she died. But Papa Marcus taught me new ways too, good ways. He saved my life when others would have left me to die. White man's world not always kind to Apache children, Joseph warned. Papa Marcus's world kind to me, Ayana replied. He loved me, protect me, give me home and family. Joseph looked between Marcus and Ayana, seeing the obvious bond that had formed between them. And what if Apache people need you? What if your blood calls you back to your true people? Ayana considered this seriously. Then I come back. But now I stay with Papa Marcus. He need me too. The wisdom in the 6-year-old's words seemed to surprise even Joseph. After a long pause, he nodded slowly. Very well. Child chooses white father. But he looked directly at Marcus. You must promise to teach her about Apache heritage. She must not forget who she is. I promise, Marcus said solemnly. And Joseph, she'll always be welcome to visit your people, to learn more about her culture and her family's history. Good. We camp by river tonight. Child can visit. Hear stories of her grandmother and grandfather. Tomorrow we go back to mountains. That evening, Ayana spent hours with Joseph and the other warriors, listening to stories about her family and her people's history. Marcus watched from a distance, seeing how her face lit up as she learned about her heritage. But when it came time for bed, she ran back to the house and to him. Papa Marcus, she said as he tucked her in. Uncle Joseph, tell me about Apache ways, about brave warriors and wise women and beautiful horses that run like wind. Did you like hearing those stories? Yes, but I like living here with you more. Apache ways are in my blood, but this is my home. Marcus kissed her forehead and smoothed her hair. I'm glad you're happy here, sweetheart, and I'm proud of you for being brave enough to choose what you wanted. Papa Marcus, yes? Tomorrow, can you teach me to read better? Uncle Joseph say. Apache people need to learn white man's words to survive in white man's world. Of course, we'll work on reading every day if you want. I want to be strong Apache girl and smart white girl too. Marcus smiled at her logic. I think that's a perfect plan. The next morning, Joseph and his companions prepared to leave. Before mounting his horse, Joseph had one final conversation with Marcus. You have done good thing, white man. Child is happy, healthy, loved, but remember she is Apache. That blood will call to her someday, and when it does, I'll support whatever choice she makes. Marcus promised. Good. And white man, if anyone ever threatens this child because of her Apache blood, you send word to Joseph Running Wolf. Apache protect their own, even when they choose to live in white world. As the warriors rode away, Ayana waved goodbye from the porch. Marcus put his arm around her small shoulders and felt a profound sense of gratitude for the strange turns that had brought them together. Ready for your reading lesson? He asked. Ready, Ayana said with a bright smile. I want to learn everything. The bonds of family grow stronger every day. Subscribe to see what challenges and adventures await Marcus and Ayana as their unlikely family continues to grow. 2 years had passed since the visit from Joseph Running Wolf, and the changes in both Marcus and Ayana were remarkable. At 8 years old, Ayana had grown into a confident, intelligent child who moved effortlessly between the Apache traditions Joseph had taught her during his visit and the frontier life she shared with Marcus. She could track animals like her Apache ancestors, read and write English better than many adults, and had developed a reputation throughout the territory for her skill with horses. Marcus, for his part, had discovered that fatherhood suited him in ways he'd never imagined. The lonely, somewhat bitter man who had found a dying child by the river had been transformed into someone with purpose, joy, and a fierce protective love that surprised even him. Papa Marcus, Ayanna said one morning as they worked together to break a young stallion. Miss Patterson says there's going to be a territorial fair in Tucson next month. Can we go? Marcus paused in his work, considering the request. Ayanna had been attending the small school in the nearby settlement of Riverside for the past year, and her teacher, Miss Patterson, had become an advocate for the bright Apache girl who excelled in every subject. It's a long journey, Marcus said, and there might be people there who don't understand about our family. You mean people who don't like Apache girls living with white papas? Marcus was continually amazed by Ayanna's ability to cut straight to the heart of complex issues. Something like that. Papa Marcus, I can't hide who I am forever, and I can't let mean people keep me from seeing the world. Grandmother always said Apache women must be brave. Your grandmother was a wise woman. Marcus agreed. All right, we'll go to the fair, but if anyone gives you trouble, you'll protect me. Ayanna finished with a grin. I know. You always do. The journey to Tucson took 3 days, with Ayanna chattering excitedly about everything she saw along the way. Marcus had been worried about how she'd react to being around so many strangers, but his concerns proved unfounded. If anything, Ayanna seemed to thrive on the new experiences and sights. The territorial fair was a sprawling affair that drew people from across Arizona and the surrounding territories. There were livestock competitions, crafts exhibitions, musical performances, and vendors selling everything from handmade quilts to the latest farming equipment. Ayanna's eyes were wide with wonder as they walked through the crowds. Look, Papa Marcus, she exclaimed, pointing to a group of Apache women selling traditional pottery and basketwork. They're like me. Would you like to talk to them? Marcus asked. Ayanna nodded eagerly, and they approached the Apache women's booth. The interaction that followed was beautiful to watch. The women immediately recognized Ayanna as one of their own and began speaking to her in Apache. Ayanna responded, haltingly at first, then with growing confidence as the language came back to her. This child speaks with the wisdom of her ancestors. One of the older women told Marcus in accented English. You have raised her well, white father. She raises herself, mostly, Marcus replied. I just try to keep up. The woman smiled. Good answer. Child who knows both worlds will be strong. Their pleasant morning was interrupted by an unpleasant encounter at the livestock exhibition. Marcus had entered Ayanna's favorite horse, a spirited mare named Dancing Cloud. In the riding competition, Ayanna was demonstrating her skill with the horse when a group of men approached with obviously hostile intentions. Well, said the leader, a large man with cold eyes and an expensive hat. If it isn't the white man who thinks he can turn a savage into a proper young lady. Marcus immediately positioned himself between the man and Ayanna, who had stopped her demonstration and was watching the confrontation with alert eyes. Is there something you want? Marcus asked evenly, just wondering why a respectable rancher would taint his bloodline by raising Apache trash. The man replied loudly enough for the gathering crowd to hear. Marcus felt his temper flare, but before he could respond, Ayanna dismounted gracefully and walked to stand beside him. Sir, she said in perfectly clear English, her voice carrying despite her young age. I think there's been a misunderstanding. My papa didn't raise Apache trash. He raised an Apache daughter, and there's a very big difference. The man's face reddened at being corrected by a child. You little, careful, Marcus warned, his hand moving to his gun belt. She's just a child, but she's my child, and I don't take kindly to people threatening my family. Your family? The man laughed harshly. That savage will never be your real family. Blood tells, and her blood is the blood of murderers and thieves. And what does your blood tell? Ayanna asked with innocent curiosity. Because from what I can see, it tells the story of a man who thinks it's acceptable to insult children at a public fair. My Apache grandmother always said that. The true measure of a person's character is how they treat those who can't fight back. The crowd that had gathered was murmuring with obvious approval of Ayanna's composure and intelligence. Several people were looking at the hostile man with disgust. "You've got a smart mouth for a savage," the man snarled. "She's got a smart mouth because she's smart," said an unexpected voice from the crowd. A well-dressed woman stepped forward, her expression stern. "And she's shown more class and breeding in the last 5 minutes than you've shown in your entire life. Who are you two?" "I'm Judge Patricia Morrison's wife," the woman replied coolly. "And if you continue to harass this child and her father, I'll make sure my husband hears about it. Now I suggest you move along before you embarrass yourself further." The man looked around the crowd, seeing that public opinion had clearly turned against him. With a final glare at Marcus and Ayanna, he stalked away, muttering under his breath. "Thank you," Marcus said to the woman who had intervened. "Thank me. That child handled herself better than most adults would have. You should be proud of her." "I am," Marcus said, looking down at Ayanna with obvious love. Every single day, the rest of the fair passed without incident, and Ayanna won first place in the youth riding competition, much to her delight. But the encounter with the hostile man had reminded Marcus of the challenges they would continue to face as Ayanna grew older. That evening, as they camped under the stars on their way home, Ayanna brought up the incident. "Papa Marcus, why do some people hate Apache so much?" Marcus considered how to answer such a complex question honestly, but appropriately for an 8-year-old. "Fear, mostly, and ignorance. There's been fighting between Apache and white settlers for many years, and some people can't see past that to judge individuals for who they really are. Am I going to have to deal with people like that man for my whole life? Probably some of them," Marcus admitted. "But did you see how many people stood up for you today? There are good people in the world too, Ayanna. People who judge others by their character rather than their appearance, like you did when you found me by the river, like I try to do every day." Ayanna was quiet for a moment, watching the stars. "Papa Marcus, what if I want to get married someday? Will Apache men accept me after I've lived with whites? Will white men accept me because I'm Apache?" The question revealed a maturity and foresight that sometimes surprised Marcus. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I do know that the right man would ever color his skin will love you for exactly who you are. And anyone who can't see how wonderful you are doesn't deserve you anyway. And you'll help me figure it out when the time comes. I'll help you figure out anything you need to figure out, for as long as you want my help. Forever, forever." 5 years later, when Ayanna graduated from the Territorial High School as valedictorian, her graduation speech brought tears to the eyes of everyone present. She spoke about the importance of bridging cultures, about the value of seeing with both Apache wisdom and frontier determination, and about the father who had taught her that family is defined by love, not blood. When she married Dr. James Patterson, Miss Patterson's nephew, who had fallen in love with her intelligence and spirit during a visit to Riverside, both Apache and white friends celebrated the union. Joseph Running Wolf performed traditional Apache wedding ceremonies, while Judge Morrison officiated the legal ceremony. And when Ayanna's first child was born, a daughter she named Elena Sophia, Marcus held his granddaughter with tears streaming down his face, marveling at how finding one abandoned child by a muddy river had led to this moment of perfect happiness. "What are you thinking about, Papa Marcus?" Ayanna asked from her bed, watching him cradle the baby. "I'm thinking about how sometimes the most broken things can become the most beautiful," Marcus replied, "and how grateful I am that I happened to check the water levels at Willow Creek that day. Do you think it was really chance that brought us together?" Marcus looked at his daughter in every way that mattered, and then at the perfect grandchild in his arms. "No," he said quietly. "I think some things are meant to be. I think you were meant to survive, meant to find me, meant to teach me what family really means. And I think you were meant to be the papa who would see an Apache girl covered in mud and recognize a daughter," Ayanna replied. As the desert sun set through the window of their ranch house, 3 generations of the Whitmore family settled in for the evening, bound together not by blood or tradition, but by the strongest force of all, unconditional love. that had grown from the most unlikely beginnings. Thank you for following Marcus and Ayana's incredible journey from a muddy riverbank to a loving family. Subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming Western stories that prove love knows no boundaries, and that the best families are often the ones we choose for ourselves.